What is up, everybody? Welcome to Shop Talk by GameTime Sidekicks. Oh, man. So conference championship games are this weekend. We're going to go over those, obviously. We got the playoffs set. This is Monday afternoon. Playoffs were set yesterday. We got a lot to talk about there, what they got right, what they got wrong. And then we'll get into some bowl matchups and kind of do a SEC bowl at a glance, I guess. So, anyway, we're back Monday afternoon. I got my guys here with me, Clark and Derek. How y'all doing?
Good.
I'm doing good.
Okay, good job, Derek.
Derek's a Georgia
I was going to say
fan,
I'm
so.
probably doing better than Derek today, but he's got a smile on his face. His team
I don't know, man.
Played hard, man.
I think Derek's doing better than me.
Yeah. I mean, they laid it,
They laid an egg in the second half.
well, and
2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, it's there's some things that are frustrating, and I'll get into it as we get more into the game, but you can't say they back down one bit.
No.
I mean,
So, all right. Alabama 35, Georgia 28, an SEC championship game. Georgia was up, and they were up good for the majority of the game. Alabama Tua got hurt, comes out, Jalen comes in. It looked to me at least, Georgia's pressure was exactly how they were trying to pressure Tua when he was in there. Jalen made some plays outside the pocket, scored. I think Alabama went on a 21-0 run there, if I'm not mistaken. They were down 14, and they scored 21 straight. So, Alabama takes the SEC championship game over Georgia. It's we were honest on here. We think we sell product for over 200 schools. We have a relationship with a lot of schools. Georgia's one of them. Alabama is not, and so we typically side with the teams that we partner with and sell product for. And so in this case, we were obviously rooting for Georgia, and they had it, man. They had it. It's when you fight the big dogs, like you gotta have it for all 60 minutes, and you can't let up. You can't let up any. And they didn't let up, obviously, but you have to be like,
You have to perform for 60 minutes.
It's got to be full. Like when you come at the big dogs, like they just as soon as they see a little squeak in the, a little crack in the door, they're coming, and they outlasted them. Anyway,
some questionable coaching decisions along the way.
yeah, there was. And the frustrating part is they've played. In the last two times they've played, we've led or been tied 119 out of 120 minutes.
119 minutes, yeah.
But yeah, the play calling, the frustrating part. I mean, the fake punt was. I mean, it'll just go down. It is what it is. It'll go down as one of the all-time worst
play
calls in the history of college football.
4th and 11 on the 50, right?
Yep.
Yes, and here's the thing about it. The things I'm going to point out, you were in similar field positions earlier in the game, and you've got time. If you want to run it, I mean, Alabama's in the punt safe then, just like they are at the end of the game. You don't run a fake play when you don't give yourself enough time to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what they did. With that being, and at the 50, who knows? Maybe we pin them inside the 10. You've got 3 minutes left. You get a stop, and you're right back where you were. So I don't, and I've heard Kirby's take on it.
Kirby's take is where
I think Kirby's going to have to figure out how to take blame for stuff. He's not good at it. He doesn't like it. He deflects it.
And to your freshman quarterback.
Yeah, not a good look. Honestly, that bothers me. I think the thing that bothers me more, though, is, we were talking in the first half, Georgia was running, or in the first quarter, Georgia was running right at him. And I don't know if you guys sent the message. I said, watch, in the second, they're going to start the outside zone stuff. And they were shredding them. Swift was getting to the corner. They were setting the edge, and they were shredding them. You know how many outside zone plays they ran the second half? 0. That's where I have a problem. Why do you change that? Why do you go away from that? To the point where I don't know if Swift got hurt, but
He looked spry on that last possession when he caught that screen pass.
I don't know that he had more than 1 or 2 carries in the second half.
I know.
I mean, it was all Holyfield running. They did the same thing they did last year with Nick Chubb, and that's frustrating to see because I really thought like the game was. I'm not going to say it's great to watch because, I mean, it was devastating in our house. As devastating as last year was. When I watched that fake punt, I lost my breath the same way I did when Tua completed that. Especially when they're two just boneheaded things. I can't figure it out. But then I look back at the game, and I'm thinking about it yesterday, and I'm thinking even from the sake of Alabama. Chaney's first half offensive play calling was phenomenal. Could not have been any better. And, of course, it's easy to always say because it worked.
And Fromm was throwing dimes.
Alabama's play calling the entire game was atrocious to me. If they had lost that game, it would have been because of their offensive coordinator's refusal to go back to what Alabama was. We had no answer for their run game, and we didn't have to stop it. They abandoned it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me set up some some stats real quick. Fromm was 25 of 39 for 301 and 3 touchdowns. Quarterback rating at 82.6. Tua, let me
We got a call in.
yeah. No, that's what happens when you bring up
Paul Feinbaum?
the ESPN website on when you're running some stats. Tua was 10 of 25 for 164 with a 15.1 quarterback rating, 2 picks, 1 touchdown. Jalen came in with 7 for 9 for 82 yards and a touchdown. So, but the reason I was bringing those up, Derek, is because it had Swift at 16 carries, 75 yards, 4.7 yards a carry. 4.7 yards a carry against Bama's defense with a carry load of over 15 is solid. Is real solid.
Yeah. He's
I would have
never.
He was unbelievable.
I would have never thought that could happen. Like that was my concern going into the game. I was like, well, I feel like Georgia needs to establish the run. I just don't think that's possible on an Alabama defense. And I was wrong. They ran for over 153 yards, and honestly, like Derek was saying, it probably should have been for a little bit more. Now, when it comes to that type of stuff, I'll defer to the people who know the football a little bit better than I do. But I was kind of wondering where Swift went to. So
and I take that back. I said they run 0 outside zones. They ran 1, and it just so happened that the Carter kid came on a corner blitz, so it stopped it. But to me, that doesn't mean you go away from it. I mean, when Swift gets out, I'm taking my chances. Whatever I've got to do to get that kid on the edge. Because, I mean, the first touchdown run he had, I mean, he just flat out embarrassed somebody else.
Yeah.
The dead leg he's got is just ridiculous.
Yeah, he's good, man. So, back to the fake punt a little bit. I do understand that where they fake the punt at, the 50-yard line, is where you fake a punt at. Like, you don't necessarily fake it on your own 40, and you don't fake it on their 40. You just go for it. So I at least understand that side of it, but there has to be some sort of check in that because, like, when you come out and Alabama's in their legit, like, they're in their normal defense, not like with just so happen they put a returner back deep, but they're in a punt safe. Like, there has to be some point where you're like, okay, if they come out in that check, just kick the dang ball.
Yeah.
And then you had Fields in a position that, if I'm not mistaken, he's never at.
Never played.
He's never played that. And I know you can sneak stuff in like that every now and then, but this is an Alabama coaching staff that probably has some dude that's always looking at Justin Fields no matter what and saying every time he comes in the game and just sounding the alarm.
Yeah, and I think that Georgia probably had to realize that. What they were trying to get is Georgia does that wide punt. They have massive splits. And what they try to do is like Belichick has done in the past and some other coaches, they try to confuse you with who's eligible and who's not eligible. And they try to get a matchup where you assume someone is ineligible, and that's how they're trying to do that. The problem I have with Kirby is in his defense for it, he said it was there, but we took too long to snap the ball. Well, then you know what you do?
Take
Call
a timeout.
Yeah.
and punt it.
Yeah.
So now, like, his defense of it made himself look even worse. And again, you don't do it when you don't have a chance to overcome it. And the fact of the matter is you can't give Alabama only 50 yards to have to go. What if you down it inside the 10? It's going to change how they're going to attack you. Mm-hmm. And I was just, I don't know. There's nothing you can say about it. Like, even if it would have worked, you would have been like, that was the ballsiest stupid call I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. You don't walk away and think, whoa, genius. You walk away and think, holy smokes, that was nutsy.
I mean, it's one thing, too, if it's fourth and really short, 2 yards.
It's
This
fourth
fourth
and
and
11.
11, yeah.
Let me ask you this, Derek. The timing on, if you've listened to our podcast in the past, especially when Georgia was going through a little lull in the middle of the season after a loss to LSU, I'm just flat out tell you, this is why I don't do this for a living. I flat out missed on just my overall evaluation of Jake Fromm. Like, the dude is a baller, and I thought that Georgia's ceiling would be lower with him than it would, because I kept going back to the national championship game thinking, with film and with time and good defenses, like, I just don't know that he can get you over the hump. He's not got that, that generational type talent to get you over a hump. So I was like, when will they start looking at Fields? And this is the time that he just looked bad. Fromm looked bad in the LSU game. Derek, you were wondering too, like, what are they going to do with this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But he was freaking balling yesterday, and in a way that I don't know that I can remember someone playing versus the Alabama defense in a big game. And then they still put in Fields, right in the middle of good rhythmatic times for Fromm.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me too much, with the exception of the fake punt, because it does bring an aspect. And if you know you're gonna run it, why not have one more?
It's a
threat?
numbers game.
It's a numbers game.
If you know you're gonna run it, may as well do that. I get that. I just think. I don't know. I think it goes back to it's the opposite of what we were thinking early in this season.
And I was okay with him even bringing him in, but again, I get into the situation where this is where you get stupid. I'm okay with you trying to let him throw the ball, but he comes in and you go no back. Well, now you've limited what could happen. Yeah. It's either going to be a quarterback draw or a pass.
And
why
you
not
pretty much
do
know it's not going to
exactly?
be a pass.
Why not be? Well, I think he
dropped
was
back
going to
pass,
it
actually.
But
yeah.
now they know it.
Yeah.
Why not do an RPO off of that? Like I don't think they know how to use what they have. On Fromm, I'm going to say this: he was as efficient as you could be. In the first half especially. I don't know that I've ever seen we've never had a quarterback.
He was, 15 to 17 in the first half?
I mean, it
was nutty.
And it was insane.
And there was at least two drops, so it's not like he was missing people.
I think
and those
he was.
balls, like the one he threw to Riley and the drop by Miko, I mean, there's not even a window there. I mean, I think I heard somebody say in the NFL the difference is you have to hit windows the size of footballs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I go back to this: when you have to be that precise and you've got to be that good, are you going to be able to maintain it the entire game? Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, they weren't able to do that. So, again, I don't know that you can beat Alabama with a quarterback like that.
I mean, on one hand, I agree with you. I'm saying, well, outside of Swag Kelly, it's never really happened. But on the flip side of that, I look at yesterday and say 6 more inches one way or another, and Georgia wins that game.
The fumble.
And there you have, oh my gosh. Yeah. There you have, a pro-style quarterback beating Alabama. So let's talk about that fumble. You talking about the one that they scored a touchdown off of?
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier, Clark. I get that that's the rule. It's kind of like the whole Des Bryant catch thing, whatever.
It's the right call.
Yeah,
but good grief, is that a dumb rule?
Yeah.
Like, if you're playing football anywhere else without a rule book 6 inches thick, that's a fumble, and that's Georgia's ball. And so, like, it's not a lot of times. A fumble will happen at the goal line, at like the 1 inch line, and it'll cause the team that has the ball to not get in and kick a field goal instead. But what the difference in there is either touchdown or no touchdown. Like, that's a 7-point difference. It's not like he actually didn't get in on second down. That was going to be Georgia's ball. So I thought that was a tough change of, a big swing play. And then the field goal miss, I don't know.
Yeah, it was shocking. I mean, it was just.
I hated it for him because he's been so good.
I feel bad for Rod. That whole drive. I mean, on the third down, you've got Riley Ridley wide open for the curl, and he throttled down in the weak spot of the zone. And Fromm thought he was going to go back out. Well, technically, Riley was right because he was open right there, and he said, "Stick it on me," and that's what he should have done because he was wide open. Fromm about threw a pick by throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those things happen.
So that's one of the things where the route is, he's throwing, the quarterback's throwing it where the route is supposed to go. The receiver sees that that's not a good option, so he's just sitting.
Well, and as a receiver, you're trying to find the soft spot.
Yeah.
But that happens.
Just miscommunication.
That's just part of the game. But it was just an easy completion to keep that going, and it was just like. We're just not. It doesn't seem like we're destined to score anymore.
That was the thing that I was thinking about after the game was, I knew when they missed that field goal, they were already up 2 touchdowns. Would have made it a 3-possession game. I was afraid that would come back to hurt them. But what I was thinking is if he had made that field goal, then they would have punted that ball because they would have been up 3, and they wouldn't,
Certainly.
And so
and it changes how Alabama's going to attack you. Now they've got to get a lot more urgency, and you've made them a little bit more one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And for any team, if they can get you one-dimensional, the chances of winning go up tremendously.
Yeah.
So, what about one thing I did not see coming is Tua's play, and I don't necessarily think it's. I don't know. I will say this. A lot of times when someone plays bad, you're like, oh, he just played really bad, but he wouldn't have played that bad versus,
He had
another
some
team.
Drops
Georgia,
too. In his defense, he had some drops.
But Georgia
bad ones.
Was like they had a perfect defensive game plan, in my opinion. Like they were baiting him in to make throws that he thought was there.
Yeah.
And then they were breaking on, and then they knew where, like, we'll show this open and then break, and that's exactly what they were doing. And
and they dialed up the pressure, man. They hadn't
They did
dialed it up
times.
all
They
season
did.
like that.
Well,
my gosh, they haven't, and I didn't know where that came from either.
Again, I think it goes into how you want to attack, and I think that's just Georgia's defense. They probably could pin their ears back.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they want to control that pocket as much as they can. Now, this is a little bit different. The thing that I thought they did well, and I think we were talking about it after the Alabama-LSU game, Tua knows where he's going to go before the ball snaps.
That's what I'm saying.
And when you took that away, I think Gary Danielson said it best. He can't handle a throwaway.
Yeah.
He feels like every play has to be
He's
a
got to
big
make
play.
a play, yeah.
And I think Georgia gave you the guide to success. Take away that first option and see what he'll do with it. And he made some really poor decisions.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm trying not to be a sensationalist and jump on this
it's one game.
One game. Oh my God, he sucks. But I will say that. Every now and then you have a player that's just steamrolling through stuff, and then something like this happens, and people see film in which he's rattled and he's not playing good, and there's this blueprint out there of like, okay, well there's his weakness. Tua's gonna be great, still great, but let's just say 7 touchdowns in the first 2 quarters for the majority of the season, probably not the standard that he will play, and I think 5 games ago, I could have never imagined him playing a game like this.
No, and like I said, the thing is I think Danielson hit it spot on.
He did.
He's going to have to figure out it's okay to throw the ball away sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Every play is not going to score. And now that he couldn't use his legs, because usually in the past he's been using his legs. If it's not there, he'll take off and get 15. Couldn't do that. And, I mean, he played a real bad game. On the flip side of that, I do want to say, like, the guy doesn't get enough attention, but like DeAndre Baker, what he did to Jerry Jeudy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's
well. That's the thing.
DeAndre Baker's stupid good.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Going into the Tua's weapons. I'm not saying that he's good because of his weapons, but his weapons are top in the country, if not top 2 or 3, if not the top. So like, I was wondering if anybody could stop Tua, but can anybody even guard Alabama's 4 deep starting receiving core? And so like. Georgia was able to do that too.
Yeah.
Let's move into this. I know obviously the story of the game was kind of obvious with Jalen coming in and doing what he did. Do you think if you said this during the game and I was like you're an idiot, but what do you think if Jalen had to not come in, if Tua would have played that entire game, then Georgia would have won?
Yes.
Do you think they would have pulled him?
I don't think they would have pulled him, but I do think Georgia would have won because he's human. And we know when things aren't going well, we tend to be hesitant. And he was in that phase where you could tell he was out of his comfort zone. And Jalen comes in the same way Tua does. What do you have to lose? You're playing carefree. The guy in front of you stunk it up.
Yeah.
And
it's the easiest. If you're going to be in an easy quarterback position, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's the groundwork is laid for you to just play carefree.
Mm-hmm. And he did, and that was, regardless, I thought Georgia did a really poor job of
adjusting
their pocket.
Their
You
pocket.
You got to keep the pocket, and you got to know it's a controlled roll. If you want him to roll out of the pocket, what you don't do is let him roll to his right if he's a right-handed quarterback.
Yeah.
And they were almost flipping that and crossing, and I'm sure it wasn't called, but passed to make him roll to his. And I'm thinking, now, if anything, you want him having to throw,
across
you want
his
him
body.
going back left, have to turn his shoulders upfield to make a throw. And Georgia didn't do that. And it was just, there was some things that, ultimately, and you hate to say this because, I guess this is what I will say. If Kirby doesn't have a good year next year, he's not going to get fired.
Good grief! I don't know why he wouldn't. But
he's not going to get fired, but he's gonna. He's turned the seat up on himself. Like the seat got hot, and it was his own doing. Because I think Georgia fans would have been able to, if we punt and
they just drive down
they
and
go
score
90 yards. Then you think, well, we had a chance to stop them.
Yeah.
Now, not only have you not given your offense a chance by doing that fake punt, you've not given your defense a fair opportunity. And as I said, again, getting back to this, is there's no time to overcome it. I mean, you just don't have time to overcome this situation. And to me, that's why you don't make it. And you've had 4 opportunities where you've punted it in similar field position. Take the chance then.
Okay. Go ahead.
One thing I was going to say about that question, though, is you said if Tua had stayed in the game, would they have won? I don't think he had that option at the end. So, like, if Hurts isn't there, then they're going to have to go to somebody else. You know.
What do you mean he wouldn't have that option?
I mean, I think they had to take Tua out of the game when his own guy rolled up on him.
No. I know that. I'm saying had he not gotten hurt.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't think they would have. Like,
you don't think they would have pulled him?
No, and the problem.
I don't think they would have pulled him.
Well,
either.
if they would have, it would have been on that drive because I mean that's late into the game.
Yeah.
That's in the fourth quarter already, and. The thing is like, I don't know how that's fair to Hurts though, because he's got to be sitting over there thinking, this guy's playing worse than I played last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting the chance.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't think they would have pulled him if he hadn't gotten hurt. Not that deep into the game.
I think Georgia would have won. And I know it sounds crazy. Like if you're an Alabama fan, you're saying, what's the big, like, I don't know why you think it's a good thing for both times we play Georgia to have her play our backup quarterbacks and the backup quarterbacks still beat you. It ain't that simple. Like,
it is good because it won you both games.
Yeah. I'm saying, like, posing the question of, had they left Tua in there, would they have won? And us saying, no, Georgia would have won. Well, if you're Alabama fan, you're saying, well, we beat you with our backup quarterback. How is that? Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't think it's quite that simple. Like, if you prepare for a guy all week and you design your defense and, like, preach this to your defense, this all week, and then for the last 3 drives, all that changes, and there's a completely different quarterback who is also really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's difficult to just flip the defensive game plan, on its head right then and be like, okay, completely different guy, do all this differently. Like it's hard to do.
Yeah. I think
same way with last year.
I think last year's even more so though. Like, I don't think last year you can look at it and say, yeah, we beat you with our backup. Well, you beat us with your best last year because it was 13-0 at halftime, and your offense was doing not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to point out again, because I am proud of DeAndre Baker, because this back-to-back years. Last year he pretty much blanks Ridley.
Yeah.
And this year he pretty much blanks Jerry Jeudy, and I'm thinking man, he's a senior.
Made him a lot of money.
He's a senior.
Yeah. All right. So the story of the game was obviously Jalen coming in, and everyone saying, this is what got me, is like, hey, good for Jalen. He's a fantastic kid. But a lot of Alabama fans, or even college football fans in general, will be like, hey, this, good for him. This is what happens when you stay, loyal to your team or whatever. And I'm like, if he would have left, he'd have been just as good of a guy, have just as much integrity, and just be a great kid, even if he would have left. So, like, the only reason these people think it's great is because he stayed with the team. Like, I don't get that. Kyler Murray's a transfer. Baker Mayfield was a transfer. Yeah. Will Greer's a transfer. Like, transfers are okay too.
I'm wondering if he transfers though, because if he doesn't,
then
I
think he still will.
You got the same quarterback controversy. Like, I don't know
even
what to think about.
Even more now.
Because, like, and the problem is they're both probably going to be there one more year. So if Tua's not the starter next year, he's going to be a junior. I'm looking at, man, I'm not taking a chance on getting hurt anymore.
Tua's going to be the starter, and Jalen's going to transfer. It has, like, look how good Jalen can be. Now, I'm not, like, saying, that one quarter was great, but, he's got the potential of starting at a lot of good football schools. Why the heck would you not go?
He could start at probably all the other, with the exception of Georgia. He could start at about any in Missouri, maybe. Missouri would be the only way.
No, Missouri.
But, he could start this year, but I'm saying quarterbacks right now.
As of right now. Yeah.
I think.
But next year when he transfers,
him and Kelly Bryant will have their pickings on where they want to go. I think I'd probably take Jalen, maybe. But seeing what he could do, how far he's come, maybe. I don't know.
He looked good.
I'm happy for the kid. I didn't want Alabama to win, but good for Jalen. And you know what? If he decides to transfer and go somewhere else, good. Even better for him. That's great. It still means he's a.
It's huge for Alabama though, because with how nicked up Tua is, they got 2 more games they got to win to get the national championship. There's a good chance that they'll need him.
Yeah.
So Tua's got a high ankle sprain, but there's a month away before the game. All indications are that he will play. But high ankle sprains, they don't go away overnight either.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm concerned about with our quarterback situation is.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that too.
Well, to me, this is what's got to happen, and the only way Fields is going to stay. They have a pretty good quarterback coming in next year.
What style is he?
He's a dual threat. Can fly, absolutely can fly out of Alabama. He's a 4-star. His last name's Plumlee, I think. And most big schools have recruited him as a wide receiver, and he's going to Georgia with the chance to be a quarterback. If he doesn't go to Major League Baseball, apparently he's a really big pro prospect in baseball as well. But I'm wondering.
Sounds like a tough life.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's like 6'4".
So he's twice the size of Kyler Murray.
I'm wondering if they don't redshirt. I think the only way Fields stays is if he redshirts next year. Like if Fromm's healthy and he's not going to be the main guy, I don't think they can play him in more than 4 games. And then I get to thinking about that. Well, if they do that plan, because see, this year redshirt wasn't an option because they don't have another quarterback. They don't have another scholarship quarterback.
Yeah, and they played him a lot.
So I'm wondering, like, if there's going to be some type of deal, because after seeing what I saw from Fromm, it wouldn't shock me to see him go after his junior year, because I think he's going to go up some boards now, because I think he just cemented home that Drew Brees comparison that Chaney tries to give him.
Yeah.
And he's bigger than that. I mean, he's 6'3", and I don't know. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Fields, and I think the only way he stays is if he's going to redshirt and still have 3 years.
So that's I guess a conversation in and of itself, is that, what does Fields do? Because obviously Fromm's not laying down that job for anybody. So we'll get into that when we do our kind of season recap episode, where we get a little bit more in depth about every team, or every school, what happened this year, give them a grade for this year, and then looking into next year, we'll talk a little bit about those type subjects, the transfers, the quarterback going into spring camp type stuff. But I want to real quick touch on the ACC game and then get into some playoff stuff. So there's not really anything to talk about with the ACC championship game, I'll be honest with you. It was a terrible field, I will say that. It was pouring down rain, which I guess that's what makes a terrible field. But
you got to make it. I mean, I don't understand
you can't
that.
do that. Like, I hope they learn. But my thing is, I hope they learn from that.
Yeah.
I was just hoping no one would rip their leg off.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're just putting all these kids at risk of injury.
Yeah, well, I mean, go to the Georgia Dome on Friday night. Or I think it was the Pac-12 had theirs Friday night. I mean, figure out a way. Like, don't let that come a factor again, because well, I mean, it worked for Pitt, because in my opinion, it made the score a lot closer than it would have been.
It slowed down. I mean, those type conditions level the playing field when it comes to speed and athleticism.
In a team, I mean, Pitt's the way they want to attack. I mean, they want to run the football,
run first team
90% of the time, and just play smash mouth. And I thought it made the game a whole lot closer than it probably would have been.
And it still wasn't close.
42.
No, it still wasn't. I mean, not that it was close,
10, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
It would have gotten there. It would have gotten to that a lot earlier than it did.
Yeah,
Pitt did what they wanted. I mean, to your point though, they had. Their time of possession was 34 minutes 44 seconds compared to 25 minutes for Clemson. Yeah. They held the ball. They rushed for 192, and they only had 200 total yards. They threw for 8 yards.
8 yards.
So
quarterback lit it up.
Well, did you hear their coach before the game?
No.
He's like, if we get to where we have to pass the ball, we've got no chance. And I was like,
but
can you imagine the quarterback and you hear that?
Yeah. Why did they try to throw the ball out of their own red zone, like right before halftime, and they got, or not, maybe not red zone, but 20, 30-yard line?
When did this happen?
Right before halftime, and Clemson picked it, went down, threw a touchdown pass, and it went in.
Oh, before
it went
half?
20. No, yeah, right before half, it went from 21-10 to 28-10.
I think I gave up on the first play, and it was an 80-yard touchdown, and I was like, this ain't gonna be good.
Travis Etienne is a player. He's good. You know what? So the only thing that I really took out of that game is there's still a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of question marks with Clemson, but there's some things that game didn't really show us. One thing it did show us is maybe Clemson's got the ability, if you take a team, I know Pitt's not fantastic, but they're a run-dominant team. And they were able, and Clemson was able to kind of, that front four is great, but is it great at stopping the run? And
I think it is.
They could be. They may be.
I think they're.
Well, I know that sounds like
because they're not just speed guys. Those guys are tanks.
They are big.
They're not just
Wilkins and
well, let me say they're not like Josh Allen in Kentucky. Like he's still really slender.
Yeah.
These guys, the lower halves are dang trunks.
Yeah.
I mean, they are big boys.
All right, so let's touch on from here on the second half of the podcast. We'll touch on the playoff. You know, what 4 teams got in, if they got it right, wrong, and then just do a real quick at a glance for SEC bowl games. So number 1 through 4, as this came out, I guess about, what was it, 1 o'clock yesterday, somewhere around there. I was just trying to listen to it while I was in the car. Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3. Oklahoma 4. Clark, I'll start with you. They get it right or wrong?
Well, give your opinion and then like what. Well,
tell me
best
what.
and did they get it right?
Tell me what they like. Are you picking 4 best? Or are you picking 4 most deserving? And if they got that right,
That's the thing. I mean, if you're basing it on the teams that I think deserved it most, the most deserving aspect of it, I think they did get it right. If you're talking about the 4 best teams, I don't think anybody with 2 eyes that watches college football would say that they got the 4 best teams in there. There's no way you could watch those games this weekend and then say that. I don't think. But we've talked about this already some today. But when you're looking at your losses, at some point they have to count. But SEC teams are penalized because they play in the SEC. Their competition is going to be greater than that of other conferences. I know other conferences don't want to hear that, but it is what it is. I mean, you're just going to have, Georgia's schedule is always going to be more difficult than Clemson's schedule, than Oklahoma's schedule. That's always going to be the case, And so it's hard to, without doing one of a couple of things, one being expanding the amount of teams, which I know they don't want to do, without doing that, it's going to be difficult to really, truly offer the best teams an opportunity to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, SEC will just kind of cannibalize itself. I don't want to get into that. Derek, what do you think?
I don't think it could have been said any better. I mean, I think it was exactly what he said. Did they probably get the most deserving teams in? Win-loss, sure. Did they get the best 4? No. I think that Georgia team, I mean, I was proud of us. I think we showed that we're one of the best 4, and I think the thing is I think everybody sees it. And,
even people who don't want to see it.
Even people who don't want to see it. It was like the guys arguing against it, and they say, finally they'd say, so you're telling me that you would pick, and they're saying, well, no. Well, of course not.
So you're telling me you pick Oklahoma over Georgia?
Exactly.
Well, no, but Oklahoma should be in. Okay, what are you talking about?
Right, and that's fine, though. My problem is like the talking heads really disturbed me is to act like that's not the case at times, and then go back and say, well, yeah, Georgia's better. I mean, I heard some like I said, like we talked before, I heard some of the stupidest comments made by guys that have been around the game for a long time and know better than what they were saying.
So here's my thing, and I understand what you're saying, Clark, is you think, the most deserving and the best are different. I'm arguing that should be the same, that the most deserving, that the best should be the most deserving.
Yeah.
I get that, like,
it's hard to separate
Georgia's got
those
2 losses. A team like Notre Dame has
no
0.
losses.
But I'm arguing that unless you're changing the goalpost, that the best have to be the most deserving. And they would say, well, you have to use this set of criteria to determine the best over teams that have not played each other. Well, sure, but you can kind of make that criteria, make that kind of argument. You can pick and choose your points on that argument. So, like, last year when they let Alabama in because they were obvious the best, they didn't win their own division or their own conference, but they let them in. Why? Because everybody kind of knew they're still the best. They'd have done the same thing this year if they'd have lost to Georgia. They kind of knew that, well, not I'll say the best 4 teams. But this year, because of one extra loss to the number 1 team in the country, while Notre Dame sat at home, they're not in the playoffs. I just don't, like, you can't convince me that is good for college football. And I know I get that. I'm not even one of the guys that's like, no, if you don't play in the SEC, that means you can't play a hard schedule. That's wrong. I think there's good football outside the SEC. There's especially good offenses. I just don't think – I don't know. I just – based on watching – and even the committee said Georgia was 4 before they lost to the best team in the country.
How do you penalize them?
How do
for
you
losing to the
penalize
best
them
team
for
in the
that?
country?
Like,
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and it'd be different if they had gotten manhandled. You know,
Yeah,
like that's
well,
just the.
I mean, ultimately, we knew what they had to do to get in, and they did control their own destiny, and so it's hard to complain about it.
but I don't really get that either, because like, yeah, Georgia knew going in they had to do this to get in the championship. That doesn't mean that's a fair scenario.
It's not.
Like, you're asking them to go beat the number one team in the country and saying either you get it or you like. Okay, ask Notre Dame to do that.
Yeah,
Play
or Oklahoma,
or
or Ohio State. I mean,
Notre Dame's actually a bad
yeah.
example for me, because I believe they should be in there. I just believe that they should be fourth. But anyway, I get, like, it's that whole like the best / the most deserving thing. I just argue that should be the same thing.
What happens is like when they do it the way they did it, like if they just come out and say, look, yeah, Georgia is one of the best. Georgia is the best, but they lost some games that they're going to have to be held accountable for. Okay, got it. Cool. Now you make yourself look dumb though by saying, "Well, we couldn't tell who was the best team." Wait, you had these experts in a room.
Yeah,
remember and they
that.
Couldn't tell who the best teams
weeks.
were. Then I don't know that I would call them experts. I mean,
remember that in 4 weeks when Alabama and Oklahoma play each other. So, Alabama and Oklahoma, the first two are one of the playoff games, and then the other one is obviously Clemson and Notre Dame. Which both of those are double-digit underdog or double-digit lines, but if you're gonna give me if one of them has to be an upset, Clark, which one do you think has a better chance of being an upset?
Honestly, Oklahoma and Alabama. I think Clemson will absolutely manhandle Notre Dame. And it's not that I think that Alabama won't beat Oklahoma handily, but I could see a way where Oklahoma's offense is enough to
some things roll their way, which never happens when you play Alabama. But
let's just say, their defense is terrible, but they could still have a couple turnovers roll their way. Something along those lines, and their offense is good. I feel like their offense is good enough to put up a significant amount of points. So if they have a couple things roll their way, I could see that happening before I could see a Notre Dame team compete with Clemson. I just don't see that happening.
Derek, what do you think?
I agree. I think Clemson is really good, and I think that they will lay it to Notre Dame.
So let me ask you this: is there a sub in? No, I think we know the answer to that one. I was about to say sub in Georgia for the Oklahoma. It's a much better game, obviously, because we just saw that, and it was a much better game than that. But do you think Oklahoma, or do you think Ohio State? Do you think Ohio State would have, if they were in it, would they have a better chance than Oklahoma against either of those two teams?
Yeah,
they would
against Clemson. I think
because they can play some defense. They can.
I think their passing game. That Haskins kid can flat out spin it.
Yeah,
and they got some dangerous weapons outside. I mean, they're kind of like Oklahoma to me. They have a dangerous offense. Like, that kid is a lot better than I think people think he is. I mean, The thing is, he's not even really realistically in the Heisman talk.
No.
But if you look at his stats, they're as good or if not better than the other two.
But they struggled with so many.
They did.
I mean, they even struggled this last week up until the fourth quarter.
Did. Well, but to me, they're kind of like the Oklahoma, because really their offense hasn't struggled that much. It's been their defense. They've put points on the board. I mean, to do what they did against Michigan, if you're going to say Michigan's a pretty good team, which I think everybody thought their defense was like all world, and what they score 62.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an offense that's like no other. Well, not like no other. That's an offense that's really, really good. Yeah. But I think the thing is like I look at the Oklahoma matchup, and like I think I think if you watch what Georgia did defensively in the second half against Oklahoma, they kind of gave you a blueprint of how you're going to do it.
Yeah, but Oklahoma doesn't have the athletes that Georgia has to execute that blueprint.
Yeah, and that's well, I'm saying for Alabama. I think Georgia's going to help Alabama. And I think the fact that those defenses are one and the same, schematic-wise.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say about it is this. Last year's Georgia team did not have the athletes in the secondary that this Alabama team has.
No.
Their DBs may not play that well, they may not look that great, but I can't penalize them for what they did against Georgia because they were in perfect coverage. It was just the throw was out of this world, and I think that also is going to be a big benefit for Alabama was that blueprint that was kind of because really Oklahoma's offense was very stagnant in the second half against Georgia last year.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. I was thinking back on that game too, the Oklahoma-Georgia game from last year, and thinking, technically Oklahoma and Georgia played so close, and then Georgia also was a couple inches away from winning the national championship. Therefore, Oklahoma has a shot, this year. But that doesn't quite work like that because that offense or that defense last year, I think Oklahoma's offense has actually improved from last year. I think their defense is significantly worse than it was last year. And I think that, going into if you look at the Alabama game, I heard Marcus Spears talking about this, and if you're the defensive coordinator for Alabama, I know Oklahoma's offense is really good, but just make 2 to 3 stops if you're Alabama's defense, and I think you win that game. I think that's all it really takes, and I would trust Alabama's defense, which is a really good defense, to just get 2 or 3 stops. Maybe they still give up 30-something. Just get 2 or 3 stops versus a really good Oklahoma offense. And then I don't see how in the world Oklahoma stops Alabama. And I'm not even thinking from Tua's perspective. I know Tua can fling it, and he probably will. I'm thinking about
just running
it straight down the middle. Or, well, not necessarily straight down the middle, but straight down their throat. When you watch Oklahoma play, there's just not that it doesn't take you long to realize the size and the speed and the athleticism on the defensive end and the defensive side of the ball is not. I mean, it's just not.
Their offense scored 10 points in the second half and overtimes against Georgia. I don't know. That's
But I think their offense is better this year.
I think they've got better numbers. I don't know that I think they're better.
I honestly think Kyler Murray is a better. This is going to sound stupid, but I think he's a better college quarterback than Baker. Not because he's a better quarterback than Baker, because sometimes in college you can be the lesser of the quarterback, but your offense is better with you.
Yeah.
Because he is
it's
so
tough to
dang
tell
fast,
because Baker did stupid things too. I mean, he put up stupid numbers too.
He did. I mean, he had 600 passing yards in one game. 598 or something.
Honestly, I think it's hard for me to really tell because I mean they don't play nobody out there plays defense. Nobody in that conference plays defense. They're like the new Pac-12.
So let me ask you this though, and I know I have an opinion on this too, but there's also some pretty dang good offenses in that conference too. Is it that conference just full of good offenses, or is this no one that conference plays defense?
I don't think they play defense. I mean,
I think it's more that true, but I do think there's some decent offenses.
They are, but nobody's reinventing the wheel, and I think you've got guys and they look super duper fast, and then we take it for granted, but team speed wise, I'll take Georgia's team speed over Oklahoma's.
Yeah, but Oklahoma's fast.
Skill position wise, I would take Alabama's. I would take Georgia, and that's their hype is we're so fast. Are you? Or are you fast against who you're playing against?
The thing is, if the teams that you're playing against
are
super fast or place a lot of all their emphasis on the offensive side of the ball, and your defensive players that you're playing against, both in practice and in the games, are good athletes, but they're not the same level of athlete that you're focused on getting for your offense.
Yeah.
They're gonna obviously look great, because you're not going against that same caliber of talent on the defensive side of the ball like the teams in the SEC focus on that defensive side of the ball.
Right. Well, the thing is, they scored 39 against Texas, who is a very young defense. Now, they have some talent. Texas got some defensive talent. They're very small up front, though.
They're
incredibly small up front.
That's why I think
So
I know Notre Dame's not got the offense that Oklahoma has, but they seem like, to me, more of like a all chips in on one side of the ball type. I mean, they're a more well-rounded football team.
Yeah, Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
In my opinion, Notre Dame. There's a top tier of schools or of teams, and that's Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia. We saw Saturday that Georgia's right there. I don't think it's Alabama and everyone else by any stretch of the imagination. It's Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and then everybody else. But when you talk about that second tier of teams, in my opinion, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Ohio State. There's your second tier. I know I don't think they're close to the first tier, but you got to put one of them in because you only have three real good ones.
On any given Saturday, I mean, you never know. The fiddle could happen.
In that case, Oklahoma's got a fighting chance.
Yeah, and they do have one because it's one of Saban's weaknesses. Like, it's been his weakness is stopping running quarterbacks.
And this one's fast, man.
And he's fast.
He's fast.
He's a video game fast.
He's so fun to watch too, though. Like, hey, I love offense. I hate defense. Just give me a game they score 72. I'd take it.
My thing is this: like, Texas kept them to 39 points with that defense. What makes you think they're going to score over 39 on Alabama's defense?
The second time they did. The first time, even though they lost, 45. They had 45 or 50, something like that.
I thought it was like 48, 45 or something.
But,
I just don't, I don't see, I don't know. And the other thing I worry about is he's going to get hit.
45,
He's going to get hit like he's never been hit. I mean, you're talking about dudes on that defensive front for Alabama and they can run.
They can't even. There's no way they block the interior linemen for like Quinn Williams and guys like that. They're just unblockable. That's what I think Georgia did a really good job is
they took him out of the game,
keeping him from being just a game disruptor. That dude just is single-handedly shifted.
Well, Alabama's defense is similar to Georgia's in that if you watch them, they are trying their hardest. And I know everybody is, but the level of performance after a team converts a third down is so much different to me than they actually – it's easier to sustain a drive. Those first three downs, man, they are balls to the wall to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we'll break down the bowls, especially the playoff ones. In between now and come bowl season. We got some time. We got plenty of cool topics to talk about in between now and then. The playoff games being one of them. Real quick before we wrap up, I want to take a quick glance at the SEC slate for the bowl games. There's 11 SEC schools. There's got to be some kind of record though. 11 SEC teams in the bowls. Maybe there's been more before.
I don't know.
They're one game away from
Vols, Arkansas, and
Vols, Arkansas, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Okay. Yeah, they can't go because they can't go. I think they did qualify. No, they didn't qualify.
No, they didn't qualify. Yeah,
but they couldn't have gone anyway.
So have y'all looked at the matchups yet, or you want me to run down?
Run down.
Let me run through
I've looked at most of them, but I don't remember them.
So starting with Florida and LSU is it? I know the Peach Bowl is considered a New Year's Six Bowl. Isn't it?
But
it's just not on New Year's. That's confused the crap out of me because I was like, oh wait, December 29th, we're not playing a New Year's Six Bowl, but we are because it's Peach Bowl. Anyway,
it's still the same.
I may go to that one. That's in the new Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta.
Tell Jamie that might be a really good birthday present.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to see Florida get beat by Michigan again for my birthday. All right, starting with Florida, Michigan at the Peach Bowl. That's December 29th. Then you have Orange Bowl, Alabama, Oklahoma. Obviously talked about that one. The Fiesta Bowl, LSU versus Central Florida. I feel like that's far and away the most intriguing one to me. Sugar Bowl, Georgia versus Texas. Oof. Citrus Bowl, Kentucky, Penn State.
That's a good matchup. I like that matchup. I'm curious.
I'm curious to see, and the spread on it. I looked at that earlier. Penn State's getting 5.5.
They're getting.
Oh,
I thought they were given.
Not many. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. They're favored. Penn State's
Yeah,
favored
okay,
5.5. Yep.
Academy Sports Bowl, Vandy. Oh gosh, I just got a pop up. Some kind of a pop up. I may have to go back. Was it Vandy at? Vandy versus Houston. Hold on a second.
With or without Ed Oliver? I'm guessing without.
Without. Yeah, he already announced that, didn't he? That he wasn't going to play in the
Did
bowl
he?
game. I'm pretty
Did he?
sure.
There's
Auburn,
nothing to gain for him in playing in that bowl
No.
game.
Yeah, everyone's gonna get upset at that, but I kind of side with the kids on that one. That's their family and future.
I mean, you're playing for
You
a
look
really nice fossil watch.
Yeah,
and I
look
don't
at
think
Mackenzie
that's really. I don't think that's something he's really going for now.
Like, look at McKenzie. Other people that want, you got to play, you got to finish. Like, look at Mackenzie Milton and see what that's done to his family and his future, and say it's worth it. It's not. Auburn versus Purdue at the Music City Bowl. Missouri versus Oklahoma State at the Liberty Bowl. Texas A&M versus NC State, the Gator Bowl. Already said Kentucky, Penn State. Already Baylor versus Vandy, Texas Bowl. Mississippi State versus Iowa, Outback Bowl. South Carolina and Virginia at the Belk Bowl.
I know we were favored on all of them. I think except for
Kentucky.
Purdue and Kentucky,
Um,
or the Auburn against Purdue and Kentucky,
Florida's favored versus Michigan.
and Florida.
Yeah, I would not see that. I honestly, that's a bad matchup for us. I think we're gonna get.
I don't. I think the thing is I think that Ohio State got after Shea Patterson, and Ohio State don't have the
Pass
rushers that Florida has.
But
So
that's-
I'm curious to see how that. I'm curious to see how that goes.
Well, we finally get a chance, or we get a chance to finally beat them. They've beat us in 2007 with Tebow in the bowl game. They beat us. Was it 2 or 3 years ago in a bowl game? Or at least 2 or 3 years ago in a bowl game. They beat us like a drum, and then they beat us. There's another time in there, and then the start of the season last year. So
the problem is like everybody knows which conference is the best, and I mean
the MAC.
yeah, and teams gear up.
Yeah.
Except for the guys coming from our conference, because they're kind of like, I got to go get paid. This game don't mean
Trying to
nothing
get that
to me.
Fossil Watts, huh?
Yeah, I can buy all the new era hats I need.
I get a new
after,
iPod.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So it doesn't. That's just the way they think. I
Yeah.
think the Auburn guys told you last year. They were like, "Yeah, we weren't about to get hurt." I
Yeah.
mean, and I can't say I blame them, and I don't know. So
I definitely don't blame.
we'll probably win half of them, and everybody say, "See, SEC isn't that good." I'm thinking, you realize these guys, like, their prize is more than saying that they were a bowl champion against
The Belk
Purdue.
Bowl.
What's
What's the most fascinating matchup for the SEC?
non-power?
No,
I mean,
for SEC, like the ones I just named, I think it's LSU and Central Florida.
I like that matchup. I like I like the prestige programs in Florida and Michigan and Georgia and Texas. I think that's. I mean, you got two big time. Both those games have big time programs, and I'm curious to see like Kentucky against Penn State.
Clark, what do you think?
I'm interested to see that Florida and Michigan game, just to see Florida with a new coach who's done really, really well. I think that he'll have them ready to play, and I think you'll be surprised there. That game is intriguing to me because Michigan had been looked at as basically they would have been in the playoffs if they had not lost Ohio State, and then all of a sudden they're not in the playoffs, and they're how motivated are they to go out and play in this game when they are wishing that they were in, because if they had won that one
Right
game
there on the brink.
they could have been in the playoffs, and now and they got throttled. How do they bounce back from that? So I think that's
and then you got Ohio State playing Washington.
yeah.
Oh man!
In the worst conference championship game I've ever seen in my life.
So with Washington 10-3.
Yeah.
Our
Defensive touchdown.
Are you serious? I did not know that.
Yeah.
the sixth best team in the SEC beat the conference champion from the Pac-12. To me, it's LSU UCF.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I wish it was Florida UCF. Not because I think Florida is just an amazing team, just because I wanted them to. I thought they could beat UCF
That'd
with
be
or
so
without
many
McKenzie.
fights.
Yeah, I wanted to play the 3 Florida teams right in a row and Florida to beat them. But it's LSU. They're going to do the same thing that Alabama's going to do versus Oklahoma. Control. They're going to run it. Power football.
Let me ask you a question, though. Do you think Florida would have anything to gain by playing UCF?
Not much to gain, but not a ton to gain in any of the bowls per se. Not that there's not anything to gain in the bowls. I'm just saying, like, there's not a matchup out there with the possible bowl projection for Florida even a couple weeks ago that I'm like, oh yeah, if they could get that one and prove this or that. I don't necessarily think so. I do. I just wanted a good SEC team to play Central Florida, and not Auburn that came off, the brink of a playoffs and then none
without their best player.
Yeah, I wanted LSU. Although there's a bunch of people from LSU not going to play, I think Florida would be really hyped for that game, and so I think they would get their best. I'm not so sure they'd beat Central Florida. I think they would.
I think they. Well, my problem with that is like one. You're already not recruiting the same level of kids. Like Florida's going after 5 stars and 4 stars. UCF's going after 3 stars and 2 stars. And I think my problem would be, like, to me, Florida has everything to lose in that game,
especially without Mackenzie Milton.
Because if Florida beats them up, then they're like, yeah, well, those 2 and 3 star kids aren't impacted. If UCF wins, those 4 and 5 stars are looking like now they're UCF's going and saying, "Hey, which school in Florida do you want to come to?"
I can definitely see that. They had a lot to lose if they lost that game. I think UCF fans are somehow believing that Florida tried to dodge them because Florida's AD is on the selection committee, but he's not allowed to be in the selection.
He's retired, isn't he? Or is it the new AD?
No, the new
Strickland
one. He's on the committee. The problem, but he's not allowed to.
That's why Georgia's not in, folks.
Yeah. He's not allowed to be in the room when they discuss Florida bowl matchups. But if it's Strickland, like, he looks at it like they've got more to gain from an SEC school. Like, he'd probably vote for Georgia in if you're looking at like possible bias.
Well, they get money.
Yeah, they get money.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was like, because so you had Frank Beamer, whose son got fired from Georgia and is now at Oklahoma on the committee. You've got Georgia Tech's AD, and you got Florida's AD. That's 3 of the 13 that don't stack up well for us dogs.
Yeah. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for Shop Talk. Appreciate you guys listening in. I know this episode has a lot of back and forth and just kind of non-scripted playoff talk and SEC championship game talk. So, like I was saying earlier, we'll have a couple more episodes before the bowl season swings into effect that talk about just a kind of a season recap for especially the 3 teams we have here, Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. So we'll make sure and let everyone know about that. In the meantime, if you still need to do some Christmas shopping, we have GameTimeSidekicks.com. Obviously, is our website. We have over 225 schools to choose from. Wide selection of a bunch of different schools. So we have constantly updating with new product, with new styles, new logos, and colors. So no matter who your family member or friend cheers for, more than likely we have product for their school. Check it out, GameTimeSidekicks.com. Use code podcast for a 30% discount. We appreciate you guys listening to Shop Talk. See you next week.